397. That's how many confirmed kills Rachel Carter had as a Green Beret sniper. Rachel Carter stood at the edge of her property, her eyes narrowing as the four bikers revved their engines at the gate. The leader, a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, dismounted and sauntered toward her. His leather vest bore the same patch she'd seen days earlier. Iron Wolves. Behind him, the others remained on their bikes, their expressions unreadable behind dark sunglasses. "You must be Rachel," the man said, his voice low and gravelly. "Name's Viper. Heard you've been asking around about us." Rachel's grip tightened on the fence post she'd been repairing. She didn't respond, her training kicking in as she assessed the situation. 4 against 1. Not ideal, but not impossible. Her eyes flicked to the barn where she knew her old sniper rifle lay hidden. She hadn't touched it in years, but the muscle memory was still there, etched into her bones. "We're just here to talk," Viper continued, his tone deceptively calm. "See, we've got a system in this valley. Everyone pays their dues, keeps things peaceful. You understand, don't you?" Rachel stepped forward, her boots crunching on the gravel. "I don't pay for peace," she said evenly, "and I don't take kindly to strangers threatening my family." Viper smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Threatening? Nah, we're just being neighborly. But if you don't play along, things might get messy. You've got kids, don't you? A boy and a girl? Cute little farm. Be a shame if something happened to it." Rachel's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "You come near my family, and you'll regret it." Viper chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. "We'll see about that." He turned and mounted his bike, the engine roaring to life. "You've got 48 hours to think it over. After that, we'll be back. And we won't be so friendly." The bikers sped off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Rachel watched them go, her mind racing. She knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That evening, Rachel gathered Emma and Ethan in the living room. The tension in the air was palpable as she explained the situation. "We've got some trouble," she began, her voice calm but firm. "There's a group of bikers called the Iron Wolves. They're trying to intimidate us, but we're not going to let them." Emma's eyes widened. "What are we going to do?" Rachel placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We're going to be smart, stick together, follow the plan we've talked about, and if anything happens, you two know where to go. Right?" Ethan nodded, his face pale but determined. "The storm cellar. We'll stay there until you come for us." "Good," Rachel said, her heart aching at the fear in her children's eyes. "I'll handle this. But I need you both to be strong for me. Okay?" They nodded, and Rachel pulled them into a tight embrace. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of the situation. But then she straightened, her resolve hardening. She had a plan, and she wasn't going to let anyone hurt her family. The next morning, Rachel woke before dawn. She moved silently through the house, her movements precise and deliberate. She retrieved her old tactical gear from the hidden compartment in the barn, the weight of the sniper rifle familiar in her hands. She hadn't used it in years, but the feel of it brought back a flood of memories, some good, some she'd rather forget. By mid-morning, she had set up a perimeter around the farm. Motion sensors, tripwires, and a few other surprises she'd learned during her time in the military. She wasn't taking any chances. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Rachel spotted a plume of dust on the horizon. Her stomach tightened. They were early. She grabbed her rifle and took up a position in the hayloft, her vantage point giving her a clear view of the approaching bikers. There were more this time, at least a dozen. Viper was at the front, his face set in a grim expression. Rachel's finger hovered over the trigger as the bikers reached the gate. Viper dismounted and called out, "Time's up, Rachel. You ready to talk?" She didn't respond. Instead, she took a deep breath, steadying her aim. The first shot rang out, hitting the ground just inches from Viper's boots. The bikers froze, their heads snapping toward the source of the gunfire. "Next one won't miss," Rachel called, her voice carrying across the field. "You want to play games? Let's play." Viper's eyes narrowed, but he didn't move. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "No," Rachel replied, her tone icy. "You are." The standoff lasted for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Viper raised a hand, signaling his men to retreat. "This isn't over," he said, mounting his bike. "You've just made this personal." Rachel watched them go, her heart pounding. She knew he was right. This was far from over. But for now, she'd bought herself some time, and she was going to use it wisely. As the dust settled, Rachel climbed down from the hayloft and returned to the house. Emma and Ethan were waiting, their faces filled with worry. "Is it over?" Ethan asked. Rachel shook her head. "Not yet, but we're ready. And we're not going to let them win." She pulled her children close, her mind already racing with the next steps. The Iron Wolves had underestimated her, and that was a mistake they wouldn't make twice. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows over the scarred battlefield of Pine Valley. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burnt rubber and gunpowder, a stark reminder of the night's brutal confrontation. Rachel stood amidst the wreckage, her sniper rifle slung over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The Iron Wolves had been defeated, but she knew better than to let her guard down. Viper's parting words echoed in her mind. "This isn't over." The townspeople emerged from their fortified positions, their faces streaked with dirt and sweat, but glowing with a hard-earned sense of triumph. Tom and Martha approached Rachel, their expressions a mix of relief and exhaustion. "We did it," Tom said, his voice hoarse but proud. "For now," Rachel replied, her tone steady but cautious. "They'll be back, and next time they'll come harder." Emma and Ethan ran up to their mother, their youthful energy undimmed despite the night's chaos. "Did you see me, Mom?" Ethan asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "I took down that biker with the tripwire you showed me." Rachel ruffled his hair, a rare smile breaking through her stoic demeanor. "You both did amazing, but this isn't over. We need to stay ready." Over the next few days, Pine Valley transformed into a fortress once more. The townspeople worked tirelessly, reinforcing fences, digging trenches, and setting up new traps. Rachel's strategic mind was in overdrive, anticipating every possible angle of attack. She knew the Iron Wolves wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. They'd come with more men, more firepower, and a burning desire for revenge. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Rachel gathered everyone in the barn. The atmosphere was tense but determined. "Listen up," she began, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "We've proven we can hold our ground, but the next fight will be harder. They'll come at us with everything they've got. We need to be smarter, faster, and more united than ever." Martha stepped forward, her hands clutching a map of the surrounding area. "We've got eyes on all the main roads. If they come, we'll know before they hit the town limits," Tom added, "and we've got supplies stockpiled. Food, water, medical kits. We're ready for a siege if it comes to that." Rachel nodded, her gaze sweeping over the group. "Good, but remember, this isn't just about defending our land. It's about sending a message. To the wolves, to anyone else who thinks they can take what's ours. We're not just a town, we're a family, and we fight for each other." The days turned into a tense waiting game. Patrols were organized, with shifts running around the clock. Rachel spent hours on the roof of her farmhouse, her rifle always within reach, her eyes never leaving the horizon. Emma and Ethan took on more responsibility, running messages between the different defensive positions and helping with the preparations. The entire town was on edge, but there was a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. They'd faced the wolves once and won. They could do it again. Then one night, the silence was shattered. The distant rumble of engines echoed through the valley, growing louder with each passing second. Rachel's radio crackled to life. "They're coming," Tom's voice said, tight with tension. "From the east and the west. At least 40 bikes, maybe more. Rachel's heart pounded, but her hands were steady as she gripped her rifle. Positions, everyone. Hold the line. Remember the plan. She moved to her perch in the hayloft, her eyes scanning the approaching horde. The wolves were smarter this time, spreading out to avoid the traps that had crippled them before. But Rachel had anticipated this. She'd spent weeks studying their tactics, predicting their moves. The first shot rang out, a precise hit that disabled the lead bike. Chaos erupted as the wolves scrambled, their formation breaking under the sudden assault. Rachel's rifle barked again and again, each shot calculated to maximize confusion and minimize their advance. The townspeople held their ground, using the terrain and their preparations to their advantage. Tripwires snapped, sending bikes skidding. Hidden pits swallowed tires whole. And from every corner, the defenders of Pine Valley fought with a ferocity born of desperation and determination. The battle raged for hours, the night lit by the flashes of gunfire and the glow of burning vehicles. Rachel moved like a shadow, her every action deliberate and precise. She wasn't just defending her home, she was sending a message. To Viper, to the wolves, to anyone who dared threaten what she held dear. As dawn broke, the wolves began to retreat, their numbers decimated, their morale shattered. Rachel stood amidst the wreckage, her chest heaving, her rifle still in hand. Viper was nowhere to be seen, but she knew this wasn't the end. It was a victory, but not the final one. The townspeople gathered around her, their faces weary but triumphant. "We did it," Martha said, her voice trembling with emotion. Rachel nodded, her gaze sweeping over the group. "We did, but this isn't over. Not yet. We've shown them what we're made of. Now we need to make sure they never forget it." As the sun rose over Pine Valley, casting its golden light over the scarred but unbroken land, Rachel felt a deep sense of pride. They'd faced the storm and emerged stronger. And no matter what came next, they'd be ready. Because this wasn't just a fight for their land, it was a fight for their future. And Rachel wasn't about to let anyone take that away.